The Faraway Land. Ironic voice.
On a Saturday afternoon, a 5-year-old girl and her grandma were baking gingerbread men for their Christmas dinner. The gingerbread men looked great, but when they took them out of the oven, to their surprise, one of them jumped up and started running towards the cat door, and out he went.
They didn't believe what they saw, but as soon as they looked out the door, sure enough, there was a gingerbread man running down the path with a fox trailing behind him. The two girls had much more to do, so they didn't pay any attention to what was going on. They still thought it was their imaginations running wild from being in the kitchen all day.
The gingerbread man had been running for a long time singing.
You can catch me, I am the gingerbread man.
When all of a sudden a fairy came and turned the gingerbread man into Cinderella, a beautiful girl. Then the fairy disappeared, and she was left alone in the dark woods with a fox trailing behind her. She was so confused, but being confused couldn't stop her from running away from the fox, because it was a matter of life or death.
Soon she realized where she was, when she reached the greenest valley she had ever seen. She had been here 10 years ago to visit her dear friend Snow White. It had been a long time since she had seen Snow White, because she had to move to Geranium because of her stepmother. But she had been so close to Snow White that she had a rough memory of where she lived.
She was running as fast as she could through a dark, spooky forest to get to Snow White's house. The wind was howling, and it was getting very dark. But finally, to her relief, she saw a gorgeous mansion, Snow White's house. At least Cinderella thought it was Snow White's house. The last time she had been there, it had been a small little cottage. "I hope this is her house," said Cinderella, crying.
She ran to the door frantically. She knocked weakly because she was so tired from her long run. As she waited for someone to answer the door, she looked back to see if the fox had gained on her. But to her relief, there was no fox in sight. As Snow White opened the door, she saw Cinderella standing there. Her mouth dropped. "Cinderella, is that you?" said Snow White. "Yes, I have missed you dearly," Cinderella said in a happy but exhausted voice. "Has it been 10 years since I have seen you last?" said Snow White. "Yes, it has." "May I come in and tell you why I'm here?" said Cinderella. "Why, of course," Snow White said in a cheerful voice. Cinderella had told her the whole story, from start to finish, not missing a single detail. When the doorbell rang, Snow White opened the door, but didn't recognize who was standing there.
"Hello, dear. Would you girls like some freshly picked tomatoes from my garden?" said an oddly-looking lady. "Oh, it's fine. We just had some tea and cookies," replied Snow White. "No, no, I insist. They're delicious," the strange lady said in a demanding voice. So Cinderella and Snow White took the tomatoes with no more arguments. But as soon as they had a bite, they felt a little queasy. Then they both fainted.
They had been laying there for quite a while when a fox walked in. It was the fox that had been chasing Cinderella. The fox was so surprised when he saw the girls laying on the ground passed out. Cinderella didn't know this, but the fox was good. He grabbed the phone that was laying on the table beside Cinderella. He called the fairy godmother. In an instant, the fairy godmother had appeared. The fox was her assistant. They gave Cinderella and Snow White a potion. They both sat up and gasped for air. "Who are you?" said Cinderella and Snow White.
"I'm your fairy godmother, and this is my assistant, Larry the Fox," said the fairy godmother.
"Isn't this the fox you described to me that was chasing you?" Snow White said in a confused voice.
"Yes, it is," Cinderella said, just as confused as Snow White.
But I was trying to tell you something, said Larry Fox.
"We need you to come with us to a faraway land. You are in danger here," said the fairy godmother.
"What? Why?" said Cinderella.
No time to explain. We must leave now, said Larry.
"Can I bring Snow White?" said Cinderella.
"If she wants, she may come," said the fairy godmother.
"I would love to come, Cinderella. This faraway land sounds fun," said Snow White.
Cinderella and Snow White packed their things as quickly as they could, taking only the necessary.
"How will we get there?" asked Cinderella.
This carriage will take you there,
said Larry the Fox.
"It's amazing and beautiful!" Snow White exclaimed.
The girls, Larry, and the fairy godmother jumped into the pumpkin carriage pulled by the two beautiful white horses. They went through forests, valleys, towns, and cities when finally they reached the faraway land.
"Why was I in danger?" said Cinderella. "The evil lady that gave you the tomatoes was trying to kill you, because you and Snow White are the fairest ladies in the land, and she wants her granddaughter to be." "She thought if she killed you, she would be," said Larry. "Oh my! Well, are we safe here?" asked Snow White. "Yes," said the fairy godmother. "Now you go have fun in your new land." Then Larry and the fairy godmother disappeared with a poof. The two girls walked off with big smiles on their faces. They had a whole life ahead of them. They met new people, made new friends, and were happier than before. They had nothing to worry about except their future.
5 years later, Snow White and Cinderella had gotten married with their Prince Charmings. Cinderella had married a prince and lived in a castle, while Snow White married a businessman and lived in a big house. Snow White and her husband visited the castle almost every day. They both lived happily ever after with their new husbands, friends, and houses, and stayed best friends forever. Snow White and Cinderella still had their annual tea party and told each other about their days. Starring
Aurora,
Nicole.
And Louis. Thank you for listening.
The end.